Hello, Your Honour. My name is Nick. Thank you for inviting both myself and my colleague Jen to present in the role of expert witnesses in this real estate fraud case. My role as an expert witness will be to provide background knowledge on why realty is such an attractive vehicle to launder dirty money in Australia, as well as how fraud can occur in the Australian real estate industry. Also states that an expert witness is someone such as myself who has specialised knowledge based on training, study, or experience. This person is then called to give an objective and impartial analysis of an issue. Expert witnesses are thus important as they allow the jury and judge to come to an informed decision about the case that they are observing. So why is realty such an attractive vehicle to launder dirty money in Australia? Real estate has been used as a vehicle for money laundering for a long time due to its high monetary value, likeliness to appreciate over time, and opportunities available to conceal ownership. There are numerous methods used to launder money through property, which centre around purchasing, financing, renovating, selling, concealment of ownership, and the use of real estate. The Australian Transaction Reports and Analysis Centre, better known as AUSTRAC, also lists some methods that are used in money laundering. From the dataset provided, the method we will focus on is manipulation of property values, specifically under and overvaluation. Undervaluation is where the property is valued below what it is worth, and then the difference between the contract price and actual value of the property is paid to the vendor using illicit money. Overvaluation is used to obtain the largest possible loan from a lender, with the larger loan allowing greater amounts of illicit money to be laundered. This is often done by submitting false documentation about the value of the property. The loan is then repaid using illicit monies. I'm now going to show you a dashboard of the dataset that we're provided. In this dashboard, the table down the bottom right has been sorted by absolute z-score. The reason it's an absolute z-score is because there are some z-scores which are negative that are quite high. The z-score shows how many standard deviations value is above the mean, in this case, the mean of the suburb. As a general rule, anything with a z-score greater than 2 or 3 should be investigated, and due to this, any values above 3 are highlighted in red, and any values above 2 are highlighted yellow. The first property that we're going to look at is 393 Hunter Street, Parramatta, who has the only property with a z-score above 3. That suggests that this could be a potential example of overvaluation. However, when we look at the property a bit closer, we can see that the lot area is quite large. It's also got 4 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms, was recently constructed, and has a fairly good quality. So while it is quite expensive, it could also just be an indication of a higher valued home that's been valued correctly. Additionally, if we look at the suburbs specifically, we can see that of the amount of information provided, only 11 houses are included in the data set, and this is over a period of 10 years. So there is not a huge amount of properties to look at and compare it to. Another property that we can look at is on the other end of the spectrum, has a quite high negative z-score, which could indicate undervaluation, and that's 44 Barclay Street, Brunswick. And if we look at that property, we can see that it has a small lot area, 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. It's quite old and has an average typical quality, which could indicate that it is being valued fairly lower than this average suburb. Again, if we look at the suburb, we can see that there is only 12 in the data set for that specific suburb. So from this analysis, you can see that it's extremely difficult to detect fraud within real estate. Additionally, as some of these suburbs only have a small sample size, and over the 10 years that this data set covers, there have been large fluctuations in house prices. The indications provided by the z-score may not be sufficient to indicate money laundering, and other factors would need to be taken into consideration, such as how the properties were financed and a verification of income or identity of the persons purchasing the property. I'll now hand over to my colleague Jen for a further analysis of the data set provided.
Thank you, Nick, and good morning to Your Honour. My name is Jennifer, and I'm here today as an expert to give a fair and unbiased opinion and to provide testimony regarding this case. For Australia, the legal context in which expert witnesses operate are fully set out in Crosby 2001. The expert witness's primary duty lies with the court, not the client. The witness is expected to provide honest, impartial and unbiased evidence and not to advocate on the client's behalf. This duty is now covered by legislation in the UK and at both the federal and state levels. Mitigating real estate fraud. For the prevention of fraud in the Australian real estate industry, a more transparent and secure system for the authentication and verification of documents is required in the form of blockchain. Documents recorded on blockchain cannot be altered without leaving a trace and are assigned a unique timestamp, ensuring the document cannot be altered without leaving digital footprints and are stored immutably. With the implementation of smart contracts, fraud and any disagreements between parties are reduced, and authenticity of documents are made more transparent. The Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorism Financing Amendment Bill 224 is legislation that represents a pivotal advancement in Australia's AML-CTF framework. These reforms are imperative to address significant regulatory gaps that have emerged and to enhance the resilience of Australia's financial system against criminal exploitation, while assisting businesses to identify these risks while providing their services. Slicers explained. Using a slicer as a key interactive filter allows us to choose one or more data elements to filter the chart to compare between the states. Usually a filter is hidden, but the main feature of the slicer is that it stays visible on the dashboard, and this is the key difference. Introducing a timeline using a data dimension table allows us to define the data elements by the days, months, or yearly. By dragging the upper and lower limits of the date range, you can interact with the slicer and the key date field. Comparing the data over time allows us to mine the charts for possible fraud that might have occurred. So the dashboard is a very informative way to interact between charts to identify any anomalies within a data set. We started with raw data and created a pivot table, which is a feature that quickly summarizes large data. We then used Excel to convert the numbers into a chart to show our average house prices for Australia. And this is our slicer here, and you can interact between the states by clicking on we've got the ACT, New South Wales, Northern Territory is of particular interest to us, as is Tasmania. But we can go between the states to allow the user to compare the average house prices. You can see down here that if we go to Tasmania and we click on, say, 2016 and 2017, it's dropped a little bit. 2018, it's gone up a little bit. And 2019, it is dropped significantly off the chart. And then when we go to 2020, it's straight back up again, which is one anomaly that we discovered. And that was the same with the Northern Territory. It has reasonable prices and then it sharply drops there in 2021, and then at 2022 there's nothing either. So we can interact between the chart and the slicer and the timeline to mine our data and hopefully find some anomalies or not. So the ABC transaction. When there is a sale from party A to party B and then from party B to party C with multiple deeds of conveyance, some within the same day, suspicion might arise when a sharp and unexplained increase or decrease occurs in the property's value, possibly indicating fraudulent transactions or money laundering purposes, and ultimately the concealing of the proceeds of crime. ABC transactions can be particularly useful as to break the law, as they can create an artificial increase in turnover and profit. When the sale of property rises steeply, criminals might pretend they are successful business people whilst earning their money illegitimately. So, conclusion. With solid appreciation over time and being a highly valued investment, real estate and its opportunities for the concealment of crime are preferred for money laundering in Australia. The numerous methods, including over and undervaluation of properties and significantly regulatory gaps in legislation, allow criminals to break the laws unnoticed. Closing the gaps through renewed legislation and the introduction of blockchain might mitigate the opportunities, encourage more transparency across the industry, Educating businesses with smart contracts that leave a digital footprint may deter a potential fraud due to the likelihood of getting caught. To conclude our expert testimony, my colleague and I would like to thank Your Honour and the Court for the opportunity to appear today.